Despite being an avid fan of the Transformers franchise, I have made it a point to avoid all of the live-action movies following the first. Partly out of them all basically being the same film for as far as I can tell, and partly due to them all being directed by Michael, yes I will make a film exploiting the deaths of countless real-life people, while said deaths are still happening, Bay, who I am of the strong opinion can f*** right off. So naturally, the only live-action Transformers movie I have any interest in watching is the one he had the least amount of involvement in. That change is noticeable right off the bat. The character designs resemble the characters, the cinematography doesn't have ADHD, and the fight scenes no longer look like two scrapyards trying to mate. However, while this means on paper alone Bumblebee is better than a Michael Bay film, that means we must now judge it as an actual film. With the war between the Autobots and the Decepticons ravaging their homeworld, the Autobot scout Bumblebee is sent to secure his faction a new base on Earth in the year 1987. Something you could probably figure out on your own without the timestamp, given how much this movie beats you over the head with 80s nostalgia. Losing his voice and his memory in battle, the injured bot is taken in by troubled teen Charlie Watson, with whom he sets out to reenact as many Kid and There's Something movies as they can. The tropes of which are so prevalent, I've managed to make a bingo game out of them. You can also use it as a drinking game, I'm just offering healthier options. Jokes aside, the friendship between Bumblebee and Charlie is well done. They take the time to develop their bond and make their connection feel genuine, so when it is inevitably threatened, the audience cares. And while usually one of the biggest strengths of Transformers is its huge ensemble cast, keeping the characters here to a minimum and limiting the scale overall does help in that regard. Speaking of which, this cast is pretty decent. Tacked on love interest is likeable, comic relief's a little grating but not to the point of irritating, and while the Decepticon villains Shatter and Dropkick are a touch generic, that's more than compensated by the human villain played by John Cena, no I don't have the music cue, who is surprisingly well rounded for the obligatory hateful government official. Honestly, there's only one real problem with this movie, but one that is so big and distracting that once you notice it, it kind of ruins the whole experience. It certainly did for me when, about an hour in, I came to the sudden realization that, looking past all the banter, the awesome cameos, and the Smith songs, nothing was happening. Not that the characters weren't physically doing anything, but rather, nothing they were doing was advancing the plot past that synopsis I gave a couple minutes back. And since none of it ties into the final act, it devalues all this character stuff as just being padding. It's passionate, heartfelt padding, but it's still padding. It got me thinking of another movie that was also mostly just a kid hanging out with an amnesiac robot. But the Iron Giant worked because we also knew nothing about the robot's past, which justifies all that character fluff as the robot forming his own identity, which naturally plays into the climax. Here though, we know who Bumblebee is, we know what he needs to do, but he doesn't. So you're left sitting there, waiting for him to get on with it, and it's just frustrating. It's actually kind of amazing how we've gone from one movie that was basically all story and no character, to a movie that is all character and no story. I'll let you decide which approach is worse. In short, Bumblebee gives us exactly what we've been asking for from a Transformers movie for years now, and literally nothing else.